we still need humans in the loop. I think that's where our FinOps practice is still important. You can't, maybe in a few years, or the technology is changing every day, but I think there's still value for humans here. Oh, and you're wasting $100. They go, I don't care about $100, but they don't understand the compounding effect of $100. $100 a day is a lot of money in a year.
Welcome to FinOps in Action. I'm your host, Alon Arvatz. Each week, I'll sit down with FinOps experts to explore the toughest challenges between FinOps and engineering. This show is brought to you by Point 5, empowering teams to optimize cloud costs with deep detection and remediation tools that drive action. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of FinOps in Action. I am really looking forward to the conversation today because today we have a guest with over 20 years of experience in technology. He actually led his organization to execute the cloud-first strategy, and as a chief architect of cloud, he developed a new operating model for cloud adoption, which I would love to hear a lot more about today. I'm happy to welcome Global Lead for Cloud FinOps and Cloud Modernization at Invesco US, Zak Ali. Zak, how are you today?
I am great. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's so great to see you. And Zak, you have so much experience in FinOps and beyond. Please share with us what is the one thing you got wrong when you started your FinOps career?
Yes, a very dangerous thing that happened to me, which was around automation. The real dollars behind it, but not keeping my eye on the ball, letting automation make decisions and letting it run away, and not putting any real governance around it, like humans in the loop. I think that's a tale for AI as well, right? Because it's the next stage of evolution, is to give it the decision-making capability. But yes, that was probably my biggest, when you sort of pose that question to me, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, that was the worst.
Wow, Zak, drop the mic. Like everyone talks,
Yeah.
more AI, more automation, don't engage with engineer, like stuff like that. And give us some more details. What did you try to automate and what did go wrong?
Yeah, it was reservations, savings plan, usual, right? It was a combination of automation and our tooling that we'd integrated. I think it's, we give it the business rules and our strategy, and then that broke somehow. And in that, it just kept on, you couldn't stop it. There was no circuit breaker. It just kept on stopping. Kept on buying, all these reservations contracts. And essentially we had to backpedal all of that. And there's no getting out of it with the cloud providers, right? You had to go and start striking deals and trying to mitigate that risk. So that was maybe a couple of years ago when sort of automation came up in its maturity. Yes, we learned from that. Now we still automate, but we tend to do those things by hand nowadays.
Yes, it is very interesting. And it's also fascinating to use the word governance. Typically, when people say governance, they talk about deploying guardrails to prevent people from making mistakes. So you're saying, no, you need to have people to prevent your automations from making mistakes, right?
Right. I think it's human nature, right? So this is what I always think about when you give up to any type of technology that makes your life easier. You become lazier. We do it all the time. What phone numbers can you remember? How do you do math, right? You have to pick up a calculator, just basic things. You slowly give that up. And then those core skills, you end up trusting the technology that it's correct, and it's not always correct. So I think that's why we still need humans in the loop. I think that's where our FinOps practice is still important. You can't, maybe in a few years, or the technology is changing every day, but I think there's still value for humans here. And there's a lot of fear about taking our jobs away. I don't actually think so. I don't think it's there yet. It's not a real promise. I think it helps and it augments humans and it makes you a bit more productive. I think you still have to keep your hand on it.
Yes, I totally agree. And you talked about it in the context of commitments. Do you feel the same in the context of optimization from waste perspective, like moving waste?
That's another one. That was actually earlier. So we had something. We would have business partners who were tech. When data scientists came up, so they were like citizen developers, right? Before it was technologists would execute and put guardrails in place and all that sort of stuff. And then this new breed of professional came where they would code and they would actually deploy. So, but they had poor practices. They had no idea. They had no thought of dev, test, prod. So what happened was we would have this sandbox environment with automation in place, with lambdas running and things, and we would allow people to do POCs. Well, what actually happened was there's a whole bunch of people running production in that environment, and the automation came and just deleted everything.
Oh my God.
But that's not for me. That's really communication. Educating good practices. I've done this most of my career. I normally come in and we talk about where I came from. So I've interacted closely with financial services traders and quant analysts and all these people that are very smart. They pick up technology, start using it for business and deliver value very quickly. But then they start introducing risk, and that comes to where governance is, right? They start introducing risk because they're running their compute under the desktop, for instance. And I don't think they understand what value technologists bring when they start looking at the world like that. But even the cloud outages that occur, people think, oh yeah, this stuff's going to stay up forever. It doesn't. It is a bit more. It is resilient, but things happen. The Amazon outage, what was it, a month or two ago? That was major, right? And I think it really highlights governance and risk and all these sort of operating hygiene that technologists have put in for years.
Zach, what you're saying is music to my ears, I have to tell you, because I feel always that things are a lot more complicated than they sound, and everything is context driven. Like every little piece in your cloud environment, you gotta have the whole context to make decisions. And transitioning that to automation is such a high risk that most of the time it's not worth it. And we actually should strive to, automate things, but have engineer in the loop, have a person in the loop. So basically he can do some kind of governance to what automation is designed to do.
Right. Yeah, I think you always need checks and balances regardless, right?
Yes. No, that's great. That's important topic. And thank you for bringing this up and also sharing your personal experience around it. And if we're talking about, implementing a FinOps, across the organization, so you obviously gotta get the engineers engaged. So we talked about the people that have to be on top of it, have to do the governance. How do you drive this engagement?
Let me just put things in context again. So for Invesco, we have a showback model. We don't charge back at all. I manage the entire budget for cloud, the infrastructure service that we provide, and any other services. We have some platform services as well. So that's the sort of scope of my group. And we do the typical thing, right? So we've got to shift accountability. We knew that was when I wrote the FinOps strategy, it was the biggest, and it came up in the state of FinOps many years ago. Engineers don't take action. Well, I don't actually totally believe that, because they're doing stuff for the business. So that's a totally different conversation we probably could have. But you start with the boring stuff, and then just showing them what they're spending, and then interacting with them and helping them. And I've got an architecture background and engineering background, so it's easier for me. You can talk about best practices, cost design for cost. Make sure that it's a continuous improvement exercise. It is overwhelming for a lot of engineers that go to cloud, because this is a new function that they have to take on. They don't understand. They think it's me, and I'm going, no, it's not me, it's you, because I'm not doing anything. And that's what used to happen. People used to go, why are you spending this? I'm going, I'm not spending anything. I'm just showing you. And I think showing that showback model and showing them, the journey gets you so far. But the challenge we had is that in a showback model, they're not really accountable or responsible for the spend, right? Nothing's going to burn them. They're not going to get an invoice. We get the invoice. So we're constantly chasing them. So what we did was every year we define objectives and key results, just basically goals. Goals underneath these big numbers. So we have a big number that I set. We say, okay, through optimization, through the FinOps practice, through waste and savings, we're going to go after this number. And it's avoidance, right? Because it's not really savings. You're effectively avoiding the cost up until the end of the year when you sort of rationalize the number and reconcile it. So a couple of years ago, probably a couple of years ago, we had this really big number that we couldn't get to. And it's because we were trying to push others to go and optimize and reduce waste and just be good citizens, create standards so we could buy reservations and things like this. So I sat on my couch one day looking at one of our stories. And I'm thinking, okay, how do I make this fun? So I went to my friend ChatGPT and I came up with gamifying this activity. And what I did was I called it Frugal Guru. I didn't call it Frugal Guru. ChatGPT told me it was Frugal Guru. So we've got this marketing effort called Frugal Guru. And in the Frugal Guru, I make everything fun. I even presented it to our technology group, which is everyone in technology. And I made an entire presentation out of memes and gave them big metrics. Like a couple of years ago, I think I'm probably making these numbers up, but just to give you a size of what I was conveying. And I'll tell you why. I would say, hey, cloud spend for 2024 was $160 billion. And of that $160 billion, $46 billion was wasted. And everyone go, oh, wow, that's a big number. Because when I normally go to an engineer, I went, you're wasting $100. They go, I don't care about $100. But they don't understand the compounding effect of $100. $100 a day is a lot of money in a year, right? That's what they don't see. So then I drew them in. And then I gave them, throughout this presentation, I gave them basic things to do. So park your instances, auto parking. So I had a Tesla auto parking itself. And then I had the sandbox environment. We stopped a lot of automation. I said, hey, just get rid of your stuff. Just be a good citizen. Stop, if you've done your experiment, delete your instances. So like all presentations, you keep them simple, right? You give them one takeaway, you give them three takeaways. So I gave them three takeaways. The first takeaway was try and auto park your instances. Apart from production, normally you can auto park everything, right? No one works 24/7. So I gave them not only the action to auto park, I also told them the effect. So if you didn't auto park, let's call it in Amazon, we're mostly in Amazon. We've got our primary landing zones of Amazon. We've got a big environment there. So I would say, hey, park your EC2. And if you don't park, this is how much it would cost you in a year. And if you do park, this is how much it would cost you in a year. That's significant savings, right? At the weekends, after work, etc. And then the second thing I did was clean up your environment. So when they've got these sandbox environments, which you can't regulate well, you can't really tag them well, you can't do anything because there's no real governance. It's all about experimentation. But there's a cost to that, and it's significant because people are just leaving things on. And then we stopped that policy because of my mistake. And we told them to do that. And then the third thing we asked them to do was optimize. And I would find these memes on the internet, and there's a guy, and those Tokyo hotel capsules?
Yes.
You know what I mean, right? So this guy is drumming in a capsule like this. I went, optimize your instances. And then I would give him examples of a database if you optimized it, and if you optimized the server instance, etc. So I did that. So those are the takeaways. And then I finally finished. I said, well, I'm not going to take credit for your hard work. And what I do, I just made it fun because this is what I do. Everything's a comedy show. So I gave them, when I recognized them after, so what they would do is actually submit what they saved. And my team would then validate what they saved. And then we would give them $1 million.
Nice.
And I think there's a lot of conversation about how do you compensate people. I think people just want to be recognized. And I think the most important thing is, and I say it a lot of my colleagues, and as you get to know me, I say everyone understands what a dollar is. You start talking technical language, no one. But if you say, "Hey, boss, I saved $4,000 because I cleaned up some storage," they understand that, right? They might not understand the technical value you deliver, but everyone understands what a dollar is. So that's how I drive it. I don't really talk about technology. I talk about the dollars and then make it very simple. And that's what I've done with the executives as well. And we probably can talk about that and how I get them to take action, which is another strategy I take. But that's what we do. And I think it solved two problems for us. One is that it got them to take action in a fun way. We didn't put a lot of pressure on them. And then they understand by, even if you save $1, it's death by 1,000 cuts, right? All these dollars then add up to big dollars. And then the second thing was that when we now, the accountability shifted, we didn't get those insights. We didn't know who was saving what. That was another problem, right? So they were now coming back to us. They were closing the feedback loop. So it works both ways for us. We still run that to this day. I think it's a couple of years old, this effort, but it works. And that's what we're automating. We're automating that.
That's a safer automation for sure. Wow, Zach, you're not a cloud or FinOps leader. You're a marketer, basically.
Yeah, I think these are all skills that you learn. Now, a long time ago, I forgot who it was now, but originally when the foundation started, there was this slide and it showed a unicorn, and I don't know if you remember that, but it was a unicorn, and that FinOps unicorn interacts with all these people. And I think you have to sort of develop these skills, right? For instance, there was one where in a FinOps practice, you need to hire a designer. I'm thinking, why would you need to hire a designer? I don't even understand. And then it comes to light as you progress your maturity, you escape out of the insights. That's done, right? All the reporting's there. You've got all the technology in the world. You have to develop these other skills like communication, marketing, because this is a very boring topic as well, right? And people shy away from money in the first place. So you have to make it a bit more interesting, and it has to have longevity.
And I realized what you said in the beginning, that people say that engineers don't take action. It's not true. They take action, but they take action what they see as a priority. If they don't understand the impact, for example, the compounding impact of their actions, or if they don't understand, what are the implications, what they do, of course they won't take action with things related to FinOps. They'll just take action in other areas. So it's really about how you make it a priority for them.
What's important there, and what I've been doing, is explaining the macro effect. I'm working at 50,000 foot, right? My budgets are really big. The money that I see is a lot of money. The commitments that we make is a lot of money. And the engineers don't see that. They've got like a sort of small stack environment that's a few $100. They don't understand the impact. And it is that taking them away from that and showing them the big numbers, and then they feel like they have responsibility. And I think our global head of infrastructure said it once. He was really surprised that they took action. It surprised him. But I said, everyone wants to do the right thing. Everyone's a good corporate citizen, right? I think that's just human nature. People want to help each other. And you have to give back as well by recognizing them as well. You can't just take all the credit. So that's important.
Yes. And I feel it's also a very important takeaway that in the end of the day, what they're looking for is recognition. And you giving them these $1 million bills that you created, that's giving them this recognition. I am curious though, if you also consider giving them financial incentives, like gift card or budget for cloud, whatever it may be.
Yeah, we thought about those things, but like all businesses, it ebbs and flows. So if you set that type of precedence in times of where we aren't so flush with money, it's hard to do, right? So I think you set an expectation. There's also the gamification of this. So people start collecting lots and lots of dollars, and then you realize that they're not really following the principles because there's real dollars behind it. So I think it may work in certain cultures and certain not certain cultures, but certain business cultures, depending what your company and how it's driven and how you're compensated. It's certainly something that I didn't want to go down. I think that's too difficult to do and manage, and then you're messing with a lot of real dollars. I think this is just as effective enough. Anyway, so
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
I think if you just give them the opportunity, so you save the most money, get them in front of a C-level or people where I have that ability. I don't always recognize that someone, an engineer, a junior engineer would love that opportunity more than being compensated, right? Because they're looking at progressing their career. I'm on the tail end of my career.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's also key to make sure they understand that FinOps and FinOps skills advances their careers, advances their skills so that they become better engineers, where they're now getting more proficient on costs and efficiency.
Right.
Okay, great. And I have another question. And wow, I have so many questions what you said, which is great. You mentioned about the distinction between cost avoidance and cost savings. I wonder if you feel that this distinction is helpful when it comes to one, communicating with executives, and two, communicating with engineers.
No, I think it's more of a financial thing. So you could use it a different way. You could say, okay, I've got a budget. The budget's the budget. If I say that I'm saving cost, is someone going to come to me and say, I want that money? Because finance typically do that, right? They reconcile every quarter, they take their savings, and it has a net effect on the profit and loss on the P&L. But if then I use that with engineers, I don't think it makes much difference to them. The effect is different. The cost avoidance is good because then the real dollars stay static. So you can use those. So it's similar. I think I know where you're going. Not that I've done this, but you could reinvest those avoidances, right? You could go, okay, hey, I want to experiment. I'll invest in your innovation, and here's some dollars that I can put to it because I'm not blowing my budget. I'm underrunning my budget. So I think that's maybe a good strategy or a good tactic to use, with cost avoidance, because if it was cost savings, you may not even have the dollars to give back.
Absolutely. Okay. And obviously, it sounds like you really, worked with engineers to build this motivation, awareness, gamification. I heard a lot of times on the podcast that actually like doing things top down first is the right way to do that. I wonder if you share the same perspective or no. Like it worked for you, start with the engineers, and it's not necessary to go top down.
In our business, again, it's always contextual. Because with Showback, it has to be both. So the way we did top down was I'll tell you the journey, because we've had many FinOps tools and create all these dashboards and management dashboards and kept on going. I don't even want to think how much money I spent building those dashboards, but they were never effective. No one actually logs in. And then one day, CIO at the time said, you know what? And because most of our budgets are Showback, he wanted to show the business like what effects they're having on technology spend. So he says, I want to invoice them, but like a fake invoice. And, oh yeah, that's interesting. So what I did was I went, well, cloud's a utility. I'll use my utility bill. So I took my utility bill. If anyone's been in any of the FinOps events, they've probably heard some of my Bhavna Halai. She's actually presented this, and I've actually presented this idea. So we call it a cloud utility bill. And it's a one-pager, and it has spend insights like your electricity bill. In England, here in Texas, I was with a company called Direct Energy. I'm not promoting them anyway because I've left. But typically, I'm not sure what your utility bills look like, but you get a one-pager, right? It'll say, hey, or your cell phone bill, whatever it is, it'll say, this is what you spent this month. This is where you've spent it. And then, especially with power or any sort of utility, they'll give you ideas of how to save money as well. They'll say, hey, turn down your thermostat 1 degree. And then it also shows you here, it shows me what my neighbors are spending generally. Like people in your neighborhood spend this, and especially in Texas, it gets hot. So when my kids were at home, this room here was my son's room. It'd be like a fridge, right? And I'd run after him saying, hey, why are you spending this much money? And I think I used the same concept with this utility bill. So this is where the designer came in. I took the electricity bill, gave it to the designer. The designer mocked up a cloud utility bill. And then we built an infrastructure. It's fed by a lot of, it's fed by the cloud provider data, the Kerr files, the Azure billing data, and the other cloud providers. It's also fed by our FinOps tool with all the context from our CMDB. So now we're shifting it from cloud data into business data. So we're in financial asset management. So what's our investments team spending? So now this bill, we produce multiples. This bill, which has how much you're spending, how much your neighbors are spending, so other businesses, what you spent last month, what were your top spends, and then we have this thing called Smart Insights, it's somewhat prompt driven now. We're trying to put AI into this because it's very difficult to do. There's only 4 of us in the FinOps team, so you can't scale this, but we were trying to scale it. It tells them very basic things to do, like so an executive could read it, like your server spend is this, or this environment, which then they correlate to the business is doing this, and then we give them very simple language to take action, what they do. And then behind that is another dashboard, which you can drill down into. And then finally, it goes to the FinOps tools, which the engineers can look at. So I'll just tell you the net effect. So our head of investments technology gets the bill in his email, gets it in his email as a PDF. And in there, it's saying, this business group is spending this, or whatever it is, or we're giving them ideas on to take action. He then takes it to his directs and says, do something about this. And then it trickles down. That was super effective. It's such a gem of an idea and an asset that when we stopped doing it after a while, we've slowed down because it was getting too popular because people were sending it to each other. And then go, oh, my business wants that bill. And my business, I'm thinking, okay, I can't do this anymore. So we slowed it down a bit. We're speeding up again. But that head of was taking it to their business head of in a meeting and saying, this is what, this is your cloud consumption, and this is the effect on this strategic project, for instance, or on your business. So it's very effective. And then we collaborate with them. So I've got another designer and data engineers, and now we've been enhancing it. For 2026, I've got lofty ideas of where this thing's going to go, but that's been super effective. I know it was long and drawn out, but I would say that I haven't found any tool that can, replace that, right? Because there's so much institutional knowledge there. That's something that my team, delivers most value.
That is so creative. Oh my God. Well done. And Zach, well, we already got so many insights from you, but I know that you also have a lot of experience and a lot of interesting points to mention around communicating with executives. So I wonder if you can give us 1, 2, 3 tips on how to do it right.
First of all, I've said it already, which is simplify the language. No techie speak. Talk in dollars. And then the other thing is to understand their business. And most of my team, they know this, probably hate me for it, is anyone who starts in my team, I ask them to go and understand the business. Because as technologists, and I think more and more over the years, and I came from a different field, probably can talk about that, but I recognized earlier in my career, it's important to understand how a business operates, because going back to FinOps, let's say your customer's spending $1 million. Is that good or bad? You can't answer that. right? If I ask the CFO to go, it's bad, switch it off. If I ask the business, they go, no, that's nothing. We're bringing in hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue, $4 million. Why would I go after them? I wouldn't, right? So I think they're the three things, right? Understand, simplify the language. I forgot the second thing. You're probably going to remind me now. But the third thing is really understand the business. I think that's super important. You have to do that.
Okay, that's awesome. Zach, wow, I got so many amazing insights. Limitation of automation, importance of governance, gamification, engage, like all of it. I loved it. But I'm not letting you go before I learn more about the prep level, Zach. It's not over until it's over. So, first of all, where do you live?
I live in, as you can tell from my accent, that's my always joke. I live in Houston, Texas. Yeah. The only thing I've said is y'all, but Uh, so yeah, I've been here since '99. Um, I worked in London in the city. I worked for Reuters uh, when they were a bigger company. Um, and I came from market data. So I used to work on trading floors, and that's how I actually got here. So I used to be a market data engineer. That was how they hired me at Invesco many years ago.
Okay, so how did you get to FinOps eventually?
Yeah, that was cool. That was totally passion driven. I think I had another podcast when we were talking, and the person I was talking to, they said that I was doing FinOps before FinOps was an organization. And the reason we got into FinOps, well, the reason I got to FinOps was that again, it's that power of I know why this is important and why we're doing it. I knew the business reason we were going to the cloud, and it wasn't because the sell of saving money. There was no such thing. What we did was I did an analysis on how much. There was this small company that they're from MIT, the group of guys, really smart guys. What they did was they developed a workload that they could deploy. This was years ago, by the way, like in 2016 or something. I don't know. It was a long time ago. They would deploy a workload in our data center, and they would deploy a workload in the cloud. And we had 2 clouds at the time. And I would measure those. And we validated that infrastructure as a service was not worth it because we just refreshed our data centers. So we were more optimized in the cloud. So we said, okay, so what can we use it for? Well, we had a bunch of data scientists started, and they wanted Hadoop clusters and all these sorts of big things. So we're thinking, okay, well, the cloud providers can innovate faster, better, and cheaper than us. Like I wouldn't want to go and build clusters in a data center. That's too expensive. So that's how we used it. We used it for new capabilities. So from that, FinOps became naturally, I started measuring everything by dollars as soon as when I got my first $40 bill on my credit card, I was measuring it from then. However, FinOps didn't become a thing until the number got really big. Right, I was still doing it because I was still the architect. I was still helping people do things by design for cost, but in a very small way. But at the top, they don't really care. We're a rounding error compared. And I think when it really FinOps became a real thing, and I got more staff, was when it was the third largest spend in our technology portfolio. People take notice then.
Yeah.
What's this?
Absolutely. Okay. Wow. So you went to the US, 99. Since then you're in the US and now Houston. That's great. And Zach, I always ask, and I always find it interesting. Is there a book or a movie you would like to recommend to us?
Yes. I'm always reading, either listening or reading. I think my current, and it's obviously on vogue right now, AI. But there's a book called Empire of AI, and it's by Karen Howe. And she is a journalist. She's actually an MIT engineer, I believe. Someone can fact check me. And she became a journalist. And then she got embedded into OpenAI way back when it was still a nonprofit. And she talks about that journey. I haven't finished it, by the way, but I find it super interesting. There's another book called Super Intelligence, which is similar. It's really about the ethics and how power and money has driven AI, and some of the ethical things that have happened. We're hearing it a lot now, where these companies are trying to build data centers and they're depleting resources and all of these things. So it's an interesting point of view beyond, the coolness of AI. It's just the net impact of this technology and the powers behind it. So it's an interesting read. I would highly recommend it.
Very interesting, very relevant as well. So something to add to my reading list. Cool. And Zach, what do you like to do for fun?
Some people don't call this fun, but I run half marathons. I used to run full marathons all the time, but I'm running half marathons. So I tend to do that a lot. And that was because I'm a super nerd and became very unhealthy over my lifetime. So it's one of the things that I call it my meditation. I just zone out and do long distance running. So that's one of the things I do. Again, I've got my nerdy side. So I've got lots and lots of hobbies, and too many hobbies and many projects I've never finished. But I love running.
Yeah. And that's the first thing you said today that I cannot relate to whatsoever. The first thing. So I hate running, but I love swimming. Okay, that's great. And Zach, wow, so many interesting insights and experiences. I'm sure people would want to reach out, ask questions, get some consultancy. What is the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. You find me on LinkedIn. So yeah, go ahead and post my profile. Happy to chat day and night about FinOps, and I've got a lot of experience around cloud modernization as well. So happy to share that.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing all of that. Like, it was all really insightful. And I have to say, also really practical, like how you take your engineer step by step towards getting awareness to the cumulative impact of their actions, showing recognition, driving adoption, driving motivation. I loved all of it, and I'm sure that our listeners as well. So Zach, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, and happy holidays.
Yes, happy holidays. And actually, there is a good chance it will be published after the holiday. So I hope you all had happy holidays. And with that, I also want to thank our listeners for joining us once again. Please tell your friends about FinOps in Action, how much you like it. I want to have more people aware of the podcast. Zach, thank you again. This is another fun. Honestly, I had a lot of fun today. So it was another fun episode of FinOps in Action. Hope to see you all next time. That wraps up another episode of FinOps in Action. Thank you for joining. For show notes and more, please visit finopsinaction.com. This show is brought to you by Point 5, empowering teams to optimize cloud costs with tip detection and remediation tools that drive action.